it is genuinely from Paul, while the other two letters, Ephesians and Colossians, have been disputed. But Philemon is a highly personal letter of request addressed to three individuals. It deals with a delicate matter with explosive social consequences. Colossians is addressed to a whole church community that may not know Paul personally, but he feels compelled to write a letter to them about a particular problem with opponents who disparage the Colossians' faith and undermine their confidence in the sufficiency of Christ alone. Ephesians, by contrast, is a circular letter intended for several churches in a variety of settings. It is best, then, to regard this letter to the Colossians as genuinely from Paul. One thing should be noted. Paul's letters are unique in many ways compared to the over 14,000 private letters that have been discovered from this era. Randy Richards notes that the average length of these other letters is 87 words. Paul's letters are much longer. Excluding Romans, which is 7,114 words, the length of Paul's letters average around 2,495 words. Compare that to the number of words in letters of distinguished ancient letter writers, such as Cicero, whose letters averaged 295 words, and Seneca, whose letters averaged 972 words. And when we compare, we see that Paul did not fire off brief notes, but carefully compose prolonged theological expositions to address problems in his churches when he could not come in person. Also, none were written to one recipient, but they were addressed to a community of believers, including Philemon. When he tells the Colossians to share their letter with the Laodiceans and to read the letter sent to them, it reveals that he intended his letters to reach a wide audience. And I believe that God intended for them to reach audiences of believers beyond the first century. As for the original recipients of this letter, we know little about the agricultural town of Colossae in the time of Paul, except where it was located, on the southern bank of the Lycus River in the territory of Phrygia, which is modern Turkey, is about 110 miles east of Ephesus. At one time, it was a notable city, but during Paul's day, its neighboring cities, Laodicea, 11 miles to the northwest, and Hierapolis, 12 miles to the northwest on the opposite side of the river, had outstripped Colossae in importance. Colossae was situated in a region prone to earthquakes, and one rocked the area in AD 61 or 62, causing severe damage and possibly destroying the entire city. Laodicea was also devastated but recovered quickly. Colossae may not have been rebuilt since no references to the city appear in any sources after AD 61. Consequently, Paul must have written this letter before this date when the earthquake had destroyed the city. Primary evidence about the city is sparse. The site has not been excavated, and only a few literary references and a handful of inscriptions survive. Valuable information that might help in interpreting the letter still lies buried. Well, where was Paul when he sent this letter? Paul doesn't tell us, and until recent times it was taken for granted that the letter was written from Rome. But others favor Ephesus as where Paul is in prison, but there's no specific reference to an Ephesian imprisonment, though it is possible. It is probable that Aristarchus, whom Paul mentions as his fellow prisoner in Colossians 4:10, who accompanied Paul to Rome in Acts 27:2, suggests that it may be Rome. Luke was also with Paul in Rome, and he's mentioned in Colossians 4:14. Ephesus' proximity to Colossae makes it another candidate, but if Ephesians were also written around the same time, why would Paul write to the Ephesians from Ephesus? Paul's Roman imprisonment still seems to be the best option, and the date of the letter's composition